welcome to round one of my entire tournament at the Innistrad Championships. We were not allowed to stream the tournament, but we could record our matches for later viewing, and I did that to all of my matches, all the Magic I played this weekend. At the Innistrad Championship, I recorded every single second of it, and I decided that I wanted to put it out for you guys to watch, hopefully learn a thing or two. Hopefully I'll learn a thing or two as well, watching over my games and thinking about what I could have done differently. I already know that there are definitely some mistakes in there, and I'll hopefully spot a lot more. And yeah, I hope that it will be both fun and interesting experience. The way I'm gonna do this is that I am gonna just start each video by talking through my opponent's deck very quickly, and then move on to watch the match in a sped up, I think I put it at 1.4 speed. And possibly pause if there's any moments that are specifically necessary to talk about. But that way we don't have to spend too much time like waiting for my opponents to think through that turn, or and so on, while we can still have the control to pause whenever I go through a big decision point. And yeah, that's basically how it's gonna go. So I'm playing, we're starting out with historic rounds here, and I am playing Heliod. Green-white Heliod. I already put out a deck tech of both my decks, so you can find that video. But my opponent here is Jamie Schoeneveld, who is also on Green-white Heliod. So we're gonna start out with a mirror match here. That's always always very nice with this sort of deck that can really, you know, when both players are gaining tons of life and the board they can get pretty crazy. It's always nice to start out with such a doofy of a format. But anyway, that's where we are. So my opponent here is very much on the super stock list of the version. This is the exact list that got was sitting at rank 1 on Arena for quite a while. That person even like posted the Lustan Sideboard guide on Twitter, so I'm guessing that's where my opponent has it from. And yeah, it's their exact 75, I think. So it's the stock version here with Prosperous Innkeeper, a card that I'm not playing, where I'm playing a Giant's Welcome instead, and running 4 Apparitions main deck, where I run Ranger Captain. So definitely a bit of a downside in the mirror that they have 4 Apparitions main, while I only have 2 main, 2 in the board. As this is one of the pretty important cards to deal with Heliod, because Heliod is like one of the most important cards in the mirror, as it is like in basically every matchup, and so having more answers to it in the main deck matters. However, another card that is extremely important in the mirror is Soul Warden, and I just want to highlight that because basically what Soul Warden lets you do is that if the opponent combos off, every time they get a squirrel and gain a life, you also gain a life and trigger all your life gain triggers like your Heliod and your Trilacera and so on. So it also means that like even though the opponent can make 100 squirrels, if you also gain 100 life from that transaction, that's not necessarily getting the opponent anywhere. And so Soul Warden does a lot of double duty by both, enabling your own deck as well as kind of stopping the opponent's combo. So that is extremely important to keep in mind. And Ranger Captain does mean that I have access to more Soul Wardens than my opponent has, because I can get to search them up. So that is worthwhile. I still think that this build is better in the mirror. Also, a Giant's Welcome is not especially good. My opponent does not run Dromoka's Command in the sideboard, so there's no particular reason why that should be better than, an Innkeeper, for instance, which might let my opponent cast a Company on turn 3 sometimes. Like one of the upsides of a Giant's Welcome in the green-white mirrors is that, well, if the opponent has Dromoka's Command, you can play that Giant's Welcome to kind of protect your Heliod from being sacrificed as an enchantment. Looking at the opponent's sideboard, it doesn't really have much. I have like 2 Ajanis in my sideboard, but my opponent only has 1. You might realistically only need 1, because if the opponent... Basically, the idea of Ajani is that, like, if the opponent goes off, hopefully with you having Solar Ward in play, but like anyway, if they go off, get a ton of life, hopefully you've also gotten some life. Maybe you have a Soul Ward in play, and every time you get a squirrel, you can scry. If you have 1 Ajani to scry towards, you could just, scry that to the top, play it, and exile their board, and hopefully attack for the win. So that's the idea why it's there, but I have 2 of them. I find that it's really neat to even just like play out as well in the matchup. My opponent does have reprobations, but I'm actually unsure if they bring it in. In general, this deck can be very, it can be very easy to over sideboard, and you have to be careful about that. So I'm guessing that they won't sideboard very much, except for like the 1 Ajani. But yeah, let's jump into the match here and see how it goes here in round 1. So I win the die roll, I think. Actually, I can't see that. But I am, but I'm starting off with a Soul Warden into Voice of the Blast, and just like going, 1 drop into 2 drop with this deck is just all you really want on the opening hand. These are the best starts, and especially since it is Soul Warden that I have here, I'm feeling pretty good. Having a land heavy hand and having a Skyclave, which doesn't do anything unless we can find a Heliod, is, not great, but obviously never gonna mulligan a hand that has the Soul Warden start here. And I just realized that maybe I should have paused the game at a later point. Yeah, no, okay, so we are on the play. We get to go with a Soul 1 turn 1 Soul 1 turn Warden. Turn 1 Soul Warden here. Opponent does not have a 1-drop. Very key. I'm expecting them to have an Innkeeper possibly. But the fact that we get to do this now, develop our voice, get the counter. Drawing a second Skyclave, okay, not great. They're, already like not great by themselves, but they even wasn't multiples. But yeah, here we see like the big advantage of me having Soul Warden. My opponent doesn't have anything. So essentially, I get to like trigger my thing twice, while my opponent doesn't get to trigger their board development. And that is absolutely huge. And here they follow up with the Skyclave here. I am expecting them to have a company in hand, because this hand is a pretty weak keep otherwise. They didn't have a Skyclave apparition or anything. But see, I'm just drawing more Skyclaves, and yeah, like they don't really do anything. But at least I can play them, and actually like this Voice of the Blast is just like growing out of control because of my Soul Warden. So now the opponent really needs to find an answer for my voice here. And if they don't have a Skyclave apparition, they have to hook to company into one. So now they go, well, land, and think for a minute if they should main phase their company or not. One thing they could do is that they can hit a Heliod and a Luminite veteran and go off themselves. But actually that wouldn't even trigger the Skyclave, right? Like, even if they hit a life gainer and Heliod here, they can't go off because they would have nothing that gains them life. But anyway, let's pause here for a second because I draw collect the company. So now I have a choice as well. Do I main phase my company or what do I do? Essentially, the opponent's gonna be dead here because even if they have their own Soul Warden and a Heliod, they're not gonna be able to combo here. So one thing I don't want to have happen is that I play company, and then they play company and hit a Soul Warden and Heliod, and then I get some creatures into play, and now they get start going off. But also what I don't really want is that what I don't really want is that like I cast my company, and in response that I hit maybe, let's say, 2 Skyclave apparitions and get to exile both my voice and my Soul Warden. So essentially, I want to be the second person to cast company, and I want to ideally cast my company and resolve it in response to theirs, so that I can get, for instance, a second Soul Warden or whatever it might be, and get more life gain triggers before theirs resolve. Especially because like they need to hit a Skyclave apparition to survive here. And or like potentially they could hit a voice if I was like not careful with how I timed my collector company. They could hit a voice and a life gain effect and a Soul Warden and grow it big enough. So basically, they need to hit a Skyclave apparition, and if they do that, I want to make sure that I can give myself the best possible company hits here. So what I decide to do is something a little bit weird. I want to like bait them into casting company, but I don't want to. If I hit my combo here, I just need to hit a Heliod and another creature to trigger my Soul Warden. If I hit my combo here, I don't want to like be giving up on that advantage of having a bunch of infinitely big Skyclaves. Because if I don't company in main phase, they don't get to attack. So what I actually do is that I attack. Well, let's see here. Because now, yeah, I was about to just main phase it and then realized, no wait, actually I want to be the second person to resolve company in this interaction. So I decide that a way I can get around this is if I attack with my 1/2 Skyclaves, as well as my voice. That way, they company, I company responds, I hit Heliod, I make my Skyclaves lethal, and then like they have to block them. Even if they hit the Skyclave apparition. If they don't hit Skyclave apparition, they're just dead anyway. So we don't consider that. I do not hit Heliod, I hit Voice of the Blast and Sarah, which still is a bunch of triggers. These Skyclaves will make a bunch of squirrels as well, and my things will grow very large. And because I did this in response to their company, even if they hit a Soul Warden, like it's not gonna trigger from all this stuff. So I find a Heliod on top, perfect. Actually did click decline on that squirrel there. I was not meant to do that, but it's okay. And yeah, because I have 2 Skyclaves and another one in hand, even if they hit something that lets their Trilacera grow to a 4/4, which is fairly likely, likely just hit here, because yeah, Soul Warden and an Apparition will trigger the Skyclave. So even though the Trilacera is a 4/4 and can eat an Oak, it's not that big of a loss for me. And the upside of me attacking with 2 lethal Oaks so that they have to chump block 2 things is pretty significant here, I think. So yeah, they do hit the voice here, but they don't get as many scry triggers as I had because, well, I made sure to have to respond to their company. So everything worked out as actually to plan. They exile 1 voice, I still have another one that's also lethal here. They get to eat a Skyclave, but doesn't really matter much. And I have the Heliod on top, just like ready to go and make life difficult for them. Obviously they have a Soul Warden now, so it's not gonna be... So they go company, they try and find a Heliod to maybe get somewhere, but they just hit a single Voice of the Blessed, and that's just not gonna do anything for them. My voice is still lethal at this point, so it's pretty lucky for me that there's second company whiffs. I was thinking about like playing a Heliod, but then I realized that it doesn't really accomplish anything because they have a Soul Warden anyway. So, alright, that was just a game stolen by Voice of the Blessed. So going into sideboard, we already planned our sideboard plans here. I'm gonna bring in my Dromokus command to deal with Heliod. Especially, like, a lot of the time you'll be able to set it up where you can fight a Soul Warden and make them sacrifice their Heliod, and that's just like a nuts position. So like this card can be really backbreaking in the mirror, and I'm very happy to see that my opponent does not have any in their list. Also bringing in the 2 Ajani's, as I discussed, and 2 Apparitions, because you just need to exile the Heliods and the Soul Wardens. Those are 2 very important cards to exile. And what I'm gonna take out is the Selfless Savior and the Retro Captains. And then everything else is kind of a tight package. Everything here is good. And even though I just won a game with Voice, and I think Voice is pretty good in the matchup, we decided during testing that it was the weakest options out of everything that is in the deck right now. Because I think Ajani is better, I think Dromokus command is better. So even though you can definitely win games off of the Voice, I think Trilacera is better because it's really important you can scry towards your combo. Just like in general, Trilacera is just a huge overperformer in the deck. So we decided that the thing you want to do is cut a couple of voices. On the draw, maybe you can also bring in a Declaration Stone and shave a land. That's definitely something that I'm up for doing. It's also very much in my wheelhouse to shave a land. Though I'm not even sure that's better than just leaving in a 3rd voice, for instance, because there is such a thing as having too much removal. But sometimes you get to hit 2 Soul Wardens with the Declaration, and then like that, then it's very, very good. And then actually, there's another thing I end up doing is cutting an Ajani's Welcome and leaving in a Ranger Captain. The reason for this is essentially like Soul Warden, as I said, is like the best of the 1-drops you can have. And by keeping a Ranger Captain in my deck, I'm adding an extra Soul Warden to my deck. Even though it's a 4-mana Soul Warden, essentially, because the 3/3 body of Ranger Captain doesn't matter much. It's still just good enough that it's worth doing. But we also decided that you don't really want to draw multiple Ranger Captains because a 4-mana Soul Warden is very expensive. So we decided that this is the game plan here. Oh, I need to cut the Selfless Savior as well. I'll probably see that in a moment. And then I either cut the Declaration Stone or a land. I actually remember. Yeah, okay, sure. Ended up cutting a castle. Sure. Yeah, if you want to cut a land, the deck is like pretty low on planes and heavy on things that need planes in play, like Sunpetal Grove and Castle Ardenvale. So I think, especially on the draw, you can really handicap yourself by cutting a planes. So generally cut a castle when you're cutting a land, unless you're against control, where castle is very important. So once again, we have a Soul Warden, we have a 2-drop. We actually have 2 2-drops this time, and a Collective Company, and a Skyclave. So this hand is just almost perfect. The only thing I want to make sure I do is that the Trilacera can scry me towards lands here. But yeah, here I even draw a 3rd land, so that's just perfect. My opponent, however, also starting on Soul Warden. So now this game is going to be a lot more interesting than the last one was. Because we're both just gonna like go nuts whenever creatures come into play and grow our stuff. And in these situations, I'm really looking to use the Skyclave on the Soul Warden, ideally. So actually, because, okay, hold on, let me pause here, because I did discuss that I wanted to play Trilacera to scry into lands. Now that I hit my lands, I'm not actually sure what I'm scrying towards. I know that next turn, I ideally want to play Skyclave and exile their Soul Warden, or maybe their Heliod if they find that. And I know I have a company lined up for the next turn. So actually right now, I'm much more interested in just getting this voice going. Maybe getting it to be 10 counters on it so you can block their voice as well. Because if I'm waiting too long on my voice, whenever I play something, their voice also grows. So theirs is gonna get to that indestructible flying phase pretty quickly. And if mine can't follow along, that might end up being an issue. So because I don't know what I'm scrying towards, because my plan is already here, I would probably scry a lot of things to the top. So Tretacera gets less valuable for that reason. And because my opponent has a voice and a Soul Warden here, I decided it's better to just play voice now. I don't know if you can hear the beeping, hopefully not. Alright, my opponent plays a second Soul Warden. Now things are looking dire here, because, yeah, that's basically like now they have the Soul Warden advantage. It's the same thing I had last game, right? Where I have 1-0, here they have 2-1. It's essentially the same. Except like, just more life is gonna be gained. But yeah, whenever I get a Soul Warden trigger, and trigger my stuff, they trigger their stuff twice. So I'm gonna change course here, because now I'm not actually sure what I want to Skyclave Apparition here. Because they have 2 Soul Wardens anyway. So it's not actually that that impactful to do. Whereas now I drew a Lunark Veteran and I can double spell here. I can play a Veteran and I can play a Tretacera. And I can start to trigger my stuff twice as well. So that I can like keep up with them. I will admit that I'm not entirely sure that this is the right line to do. It does give me the option to hold on to the apparition and figure out exactly what I want to take out. So that in case I want to exile the voice instead, I can do that. In case I want to exile the Heliod, I have the option for that. But yeah, anyway, we are seeing a lot of triggers happen, and that's just the nature of the mirror here. And their voice is growing out of control, but I'm also like gaining life as well, so you know, I'm still being kept alive. I know I don't want lands, so I can at least scry those to the bottom. And we hit a second company, it's probably not gonna get better than that. So even though, like, when you have your Tretacera, you can be pretty, like, aggressive with the scries to the bottom when you have a Soul Warden, because whenever they play something, you also get to scry. And here they hit Heliod, and it's getting pretty dangerous. Their voice is growing very large. But so is mine. And they decide to, like, just load up on the voice, get it to 10 counters. Kind of smart, just like, yeah, being all in on that plan. They only have 1 card left, so now I'm thinking, do I play Skyclave Apparition and exile their voice and just start beating down with my own? Do I exile the Heliod or do I exile a Soul Warden? Probably exiling a Soul Warden at this point doesn't do enough, because they still have all these engine pieces in play, like the voice that is a problem and the Heliod. So I think ideally I would just exile the voice here and hope that I can win with my own, that I don't find an answer. But I can also collect the company. Ideally I hit an apparition and something else. So I think here my best course of action is to play the company, because I think I need a little bit more oomph than just playing one spell this turn. Ideally I'd like to hit both an apparition and something else. So I think I decide on just going with the company here. That means I can't attack with my voice though. Actually though, there's also the other issue of I might need to chump up with my voice then. But not necessarily, because actually if I hit 2 creatures off my collector company, my voice will grow to 10 counters, so I can block their voice. It's just dangerous if they also have a Skyclave Apparition. Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the correct play is here. I'm pretty sure that what I end up doing is to just pass the turn. Or maybe I main phase company. Yeah, so that they can't respond with their company. But I hit pretty poorly. I do hit 2 creatures, but one of them is a Tretacera, which I already have in play. So I do have to put it to get it into play, because I need my voice to be indestructible here. But yeah, this is not really ideal. I am gonna get a bunch of scries though, and like maybe I can get something out of that. They also get to put a bunch of counters on things, but it's kind of useless to put more on the voice since it's already gonna be lethal. So they just start loading up their Soul Wardens, which is definitely smart. Even though they're not really gonna be able to attack through the Tretacera anyway. So I get to scry here. I see a Giant's Welcome, which I scry to the top because I can go a Giant's Welcome into Skyclave. But then the second time I get to scry here, I realize, no wait, I'm pretty far behind now. I need to find a second Soul Warden. Because a Giant's Welcome, but it's just not gonna be enough to just have that effect. So I end up putting that to the bottom, trying to look for a Soul Warden instead. Again, second Skyclave, I really need a 1-drop so I can double spell. And there's the Soul Warden. So that's perfect. So we keep that on top. Now we have our next turn lined up to be a pretty good turn. If they don't have a Skyclave Apparition here, Okay, so they do hit a Scurry Oak though. Okay, so they don't hit a Skyclave apparition. They don't hit 2 creatures. They only hit a Scurry Oak. So at least there's that. But now they have the combo going. But remember, whenever they get a squirrel, I also get a life and get a counter on my voice, and I get to scry. So technically, what I could do is that I could try and scry towards a Johnny. However, it's a little bit dangerous because if you just start bottoming, the opponent might just stop their combo at any moment, and you don't get to scry anymore. So since the card I have on top is pretty good right now, I decide that I am just gonna keep it on top still. But yeah, this is getting dicey. At least this voice, which is gonna grow like humongous, can't attack. And also, whenever it grows by 1, I gain a life. So it's actually not gonna like be much more lethal than it is right now. But because they have 2 Soul Wardens in play, I'm just gonna play the video here so I can talk through the triggers. But because they have 2 Soul Wardens in play, not only do they get a squirrel each time they combo, they also get an extra life each time, which means an extra counter from Heliod. So essentially, whenever they make 1 squirrel, they're gonna get 2 counters on their voice and an extra counter from Heliod to put somewhere else. So what you usually want to do in these spots, because I have a Soul Warden, and I'm gonna have indestructible creatures and huge Trilasera and so on, loading up on a single creature doesn't actually do that much. What you instead want to do is just make an army of 2/2 squirrels. We can see my opponent is starting to do this. Just loading, but now they're loading up on that 1 squirrel and they're not targeting a Scurry Oak anyway. So actually, my opponent just decided to stop the combo right there for kind of unknown reasons. I think they figured that it doesn't really matter because I have a Soul Warden in play anyway. But what you can do here, and what you should do if you're playing the mirror, is to just continue to make squirrels and alternate between putting it on a squirrel and putting the count on the oak. And you should do this for as long as you have time. Because the thing is, you're not gonna die to my Voice of the Blast, because it's just gonna grow by 1 each time you make a squirrel, and you're gonna gain 2 life every time. So the voice is just gonna grow like even more out of range. You're gonna have an army of squirrels that can jump back to Trilasera, so that doesn't really matter. But by making an army of 2/2 squirrels, you're not gonna be able to win in 1 attack step, because, well, actually you are, because I'm only gaining 1 life per squirrel, but each squirrel is gonna deal me 2 damage next turn. So if you just do this loop 18 times, that means I will die next turn. And that is essentially what your plan should be in these cases. And if your opponent has more Soul Wardens than you, it's the same plan. Make it a bunch of 2/2 squirrels. You do need 2 life gain effects to be able to pull this off, but if you have that, make a white border squirrels and then plan to attack and kill them in 2 attacks. And you should seriously be doing this for 6 minutes. So it's a lot of clicking. It's very good when you play this deck, especially at a tournament, that you practice your clicking. I can explain in a later video once I'm actually going off myself how I'm doing it. But no, actually I'm gonna do it right now because it's really important for the mirror, and now we're watching the matchup of the mirror. But essentially what you want to do with when you're comboing is you just want to like spam the spacebar. So for 6 minutes straight, and I know this sounds like, you know, awful, and it is. It's not great, but it's fine. You'll survive. Your wrist might not, but you'll survive. You just sit there and spam click the spacebar. What that does is that whenever the Scurry Oak gets a counter, it asks you would you like to make a squirrel, and in order to not waste any time going down here with your mouse clicking OK or something, you just like spam the spacebar so that just as soon as that prompt comes up, it just accepts. The same with your Trilasera. Once you're already scried to the top what you want, it just like stays on top, so that you don't have to like waste time, because you only have 6 minutes to go off before your turn ends, because that's how the arena clock works. You have to do that, and at the same time, you just like, you can't spam click with your mouse on the Scurry Oak, because the game doesn't, if you keep spam clicking with the mouse, the game is not going to register the clicks. So you have to wait for it to turn blue as if you can target it, and then immediately click. And you'll kind of get into like the send state flow where you know exactly how long it's going to take for each trigger to go on the stack before you can click the Scurry Oak again. And when you're doing the thing where you're trying to make a bunch of 2/2 squirrels, the best way to do it is to alternate between clicking the Scurry Oak and the squirrel, Scurry Oak squirrel. Because the triggers will take so long to go on the stack that you will have time to move your mouse and not really lose any time on that. But that way you make sure that you don't just make a huge Scurry Oak with a bunch of life gain triggers on the stack and then don't have time to spread them out to the squirrels. So that's the yeah, that's how you want to combo. I'm probably also going to show it in a video where I actually do combo. But anyway, my opponent has gone off. We're now on my turn. They have not gone nearly as infinite as they could have. And I'm in this weird position, because I have a Skyclave apparition. And I can break up one of the combo pieces. I would really like to break up the Soul Warden, but that doesn't really do anything, because they have 2 of them, so they still have the combo in play. So probably breaking up the Heliod would be the best option for that. But that still leaves this Voice of the Blessed an issue, and if they at any moment find a Skyclave apparition, I could be in trouble. However, since I have 2 Soul Wardens myself, and a Trellisera, I don't really care too much about their combo. And I have my Johnnies to scry towards as well. So I figured that I can actually safely just leave their combo and play once I play the second Soul Warden. I mean, I know my opponent messed up already, and that also leads me to think that they're not gonna go super hard. I'm not sure they even know exactly how the mirror plays out in these spots and what you're supposed to do. So I feel pretty safe now, just leaving them with the combo in play. And the way I can just sequence this is just play Soul Warden first and then play Skyclave apparition and exile the Voice of the Blessed. Because this will leave me with an avenue to, first of all, be safe from their voice, and also I can win with my own voice in not very much time. Because now I have 4 life gain effects. So when I play these 2 things, my Voice of the Blessed is going to gain 7 counters, and they're only going to gain 4 life. So they're going to go to like 39 life, I assume. Whereas I'm going to make this a 19-19, and that should, well, actually even bigger, like 24 or something. It was 17 before. So in 2 hits, that will kill them. And I'm going to scry this Heliod to the top. And you notice me putting a stop in my upkeep here. The reason for that is I'm planning to use my Collected Company in the upkeep to hit this Heliod guaranteed. And hopefully a Scurry Oak as well. In case I do need to combo next turn. But yeah, they have no cards in hand and they really need a top deck. So yeah, I can just take away this voice. My own voice will kill them next turn. What they can and should do here is probably, well, it's kind of hard for them to continue going off now. Because now, whenever they go off, they gain 2 life, but my voice gets 2 counters from my Soul Wardens. So they can't even keep themselves alive here by going off. And, oh, actually they have 1 card in hand. So yeah, basically, I'm just gonna like be on this all-in voice plan and hope that they can't find an answer. So yeah, they're maybe dead next turn. They can go off here. So actually, even though they don't have the Skyclave apparition, they can still win the game from this spot. Depending on what they have. They need something to start the combo. So they need like any creature to come into play. And then what they can do is that they can start loading up counters on a single squirrel and attack with that and give it lifelink. So what I said was, whenever they get a squirrel, they gain 2 life, but I gain 2 counters. So we're even on that exchange. Like, no, even if they gain 80 life, my voice will also get 80 bigger. So it'll always be like, in this case, 9 bigger than their life total. So you can simplify your math that way. And here they have a Trellisera here. But if they make a squirrel big enough, it needs to be like 12-12 or something. Then they're not gonna be able to die to my voice if they give lifelink to that squirrel. So they can load up on a squirrel first, and then spread the counters out like how I explained, and plan to win in a couple of attack steps. So yeah, it's gonna be very time consuming, because they're gonna need to go off for 6 minutes multiple times, but the opponent will be able to win the game from this spot, even though it looks kind of crazy at this point. Obviously, they can't really win the game from this spot, because if they try and go for it here, and actually, I think I should have recognized that that would be their out. I should just start scrying to the bottom and try and find a Johnny, so that I can kind of like stop that game plan. But anyway, they're just not gonna let me scry very much. They're just gonna like stop the combo there, which leaves them dead on board. And so I'm just gonna swing it with my voice and not complicate things, and they're gonna die. So yeah, here's you see me taking a screenshot of I left the combo in play and I beat it, which is the thing that can happen in the mirror. And part of that is, you know, Voice of the Blessed being pretty good. Even though I'm boarding out copies, which I'm, again, not 100% sure is correct. But the power of Soul Warden in the mirror just means that you can actually survive the combo in these weird spots. But anyway, that was round 1. Always feels great to start off with a victory. that is just to any tournament. Like, it just means so much for a mental game. Starting out feeling ahead here. And yeah, I think my opponent was definitely less practiced in the mirror or with the deck in general, possibly, than I was. So this definitely also happens in these invitational style tournaments where if the field is really tough of 250 players, everyone earned their invite here. So like no one is like bad. But there is still a difference between, like, I could have been playing against someone like LSV this round, or like had, you know, some other really tough opponent on round 1. So it's really nice to meet someone where it's not gonna be like, yeah, it's not just gonna be like an FNM match where, you know, like people don't really know what they're doing, but also like it's, you know, it's nice to start out with an easier match against someone who at least is not as practiced as I was with the deck. And also getting luckier, that's also a way to make it easier, because I feel like my opponent did not hit very well in their companies, for instance, like hitting one creature multiple times. I mean, I also like only hit one creature off my own here. But anyway, nice to start out with a victory, and we'll see how the tournament progresses from here.